Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. Let's get started with our hosts, Linda McKissick and Dana Gentry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Everything Life and Real Estate. I'm Linda McKissick, and I'm here today with
Mark Olesh.
Mr. Mark Olesh. And Mark and I have had a lot of great times together. We always laugh. We always have great conversations around agents and what they're needing and what they're doing and how to help them. So I'm super excited about our talk today. So Mark, you and I are here in Austin. We just left a 2-day meeting. Were you here for the Leadership Academy or no?
I was not. It's a great 2 days and better. The last time we were doing Navy SEALs training, you had me running and jumping on the beach in cold weather with rain. And this is great. I like this.
This is much better, a lot cushy. Not our heart rates aren't getting up, all
That's
that good
right.
stuff. So Mark, let's do this. Why don't you kind of give your background a little bit in history? I know you have actually Austin was kind of where you started in radio, right? So let's tell the audience a little bit about who you are and you were born. I always like to say you were born and then what happened.
Yeah, well, I was born in Southern California and I fell in love with sports. So watching the Rose Bowl every New Year's Day. So I always wanted to broadcast the Rose Bowl. And I got into broadcasting, into sportscasting, and got a job in Yuma, Arizona, and then moved to Central California to Bakersfield, and then came here to Austin and did a morning show for 2 years, TV show on KI, if you're ever out here. And then I ended up in Tampa because I ended up going back to sports in Tampa and doing the news there.
Awesome. So what'd you do when you got to Tampa? Because you are business partners with us and opportunities in South Florida, but I don't really remember what your story was in South Florida. Did you stay with the radio TV? What'd you do?
I was there for a little over a year and they did not renew my contract. And you know how sometimes those setbacks are the setup for a comeback. And It ended up, I got into real estate. My wife suggested, why don't you just go get a real estate license and learn something new? So I did that and it actually ended up being really a lot of fun. I fell into Keller Williams. And it's been one thing after another. And there's so many different things we can learn every day and learn all the time. It's now been a 20-year ride.
That's kind of funny. My husband suggested, why don't you just get in real estate too? Like it was so easy and how hard can it be? And so we both bought that hook, line and sinker. Thank goodness. Right.
Well, Stephanie's line to me, Linda, was, well, what do you mean it's going to take a long time? She goes, how long do you think it'll take? I said, hey, it's got to take months. She goes, well, let me ask you a question. Are you going to be alive and breathing 3 months from now? I said, well, yeah. She goes, why don't you be alive and breathing with a real estate license?
I knew she was a smart woman.
That was it. Yeah.
I really did. And it's been great, right? It's been a great ride.
Yeah.
So I know you've moved into leadership. So kind of talk about how that happened. And I know one of the things you spend a lot of your time doing, Mark, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, is you really spend your days, probably in nights too, helping top agents be better, have better lives. And so talk a little bit about that. And then what did you learn from that? You and I were talking about a very interesting pattern that you're seeing with top agents. So why don't you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, it's really part of what we do at Keller Williams, right? I was fortunate enough to get to know you and Nikki Ubaldini. Gary and Nikki are the people that I work with directly in Tampa. And when I started as an agent, I started to do well. And they approached me about an opportunity and I had no interest in it. And they said, well, all we want you to do is just sit down with us and kind of go through this process. You'll learn a little bit about yourself. And if there's an opportunity for you and it fits, great. And if it doesn't, then we'll just help you keep growing your business. And that opportunity that they gave me at that point was what we call career visioning or recruit select, where we learn about ourselves and what our best strength zone is. And I went from being an agent to being a team leader and taking over that office. And we took that office from 95 agents to about 210 agents, which at the time was a big office. Now we have offices of 1,000 agents.
Yeah.
But it was a good size office. And it was that skill of understanding your behavior, understanding your track record of what you like to do, understanding where you want to be in 3 to 5 years, that helped me realize that was actually a path. The leadership path was actually a path I wanted to go on.
I love that. And, I think I know for myself, Mark, I'm like you, someone tapped me on the shoulder for the next opportunity, but I think it's something as real estate agents and even business people, we should always be asking ourselves, what's that next natural door that would easily open for me that might either give me bigger opportunity or solve some of the issues I have. And I know when we talk to top agents a lot, one of their big issues is I have no life. I mean, I have a great business. And I always say the book, average is the enemy of great, or good is the enemy of great.
Yep.
I think success is the enemy of even greater extraordinary lives for realtors, because we get so successful in selling more houses that we miss those next doors that might open. And we also miss opportunities that really might fulfill us in a lot bigger ways and even money wise.
Yeah, well, that lesson, I think you're one of the first people that shared that lesson with me of understanding that we can't do everything ourselves. And if you want to take the job back, you can, but then the problem is you only have so much bandwidth.
Yeah.
But if you can help share an opportunity with other people and create opportunities for other people that are good fits for them, now your life gets bigger. And you've done that at the highest level. And that's what I've tried to learn from you and others is, how do I find the best spot for them, something that they can really excel at? And if you have a heart to serve other people and help them with that, then your opportunities just grow exponentially. You just have to keep learning, because otherwise you have the law of the lid, right? So you have to keep going higher. But if you have a natural curiosity, then that's just part of the fun.
Yeah. And if you hire great people and you get great leverage in your life, you're challenged to learn because you got to stay ahead of them.
Yeah.
You don't want to ever be the dumbest person in the room. They're not going to follow you for very long. But you and I were talking about something earlier when people are building teams or they're doing things. So talk a little bit about that 80-20 and the charisma. That was a very interesting conversation you and I were having.
Well, yeah, one of the things we've talked about at Keller Williams is, because people that have success and they have this ability to create leads, which is the first key. Now they have business. Now the deal is, how much bandwidth do you have? How much can you handle? Well, one person can only handle so much.
Right.
And so you start bringing other people into your world. How do you compensate them and what do you provide them? What's your value proposition as now a team rather than just an individual doing everything? Where you make a lot of money, but you don't really have control over your time. So we know on that spectrum that I, as a mega agent, if I have extra leads or more leads than I can handle individually, I can bring someone into my world. If I just have charisma and I'm really fun to be around and possess, I can do an 80-20 split, and I can hire people and they'll work for me all day because they like my charisma. And so I give them 80% and I keep 20. If I want to get more from them, I have to provide something else, training and support, for example. Now I can charge 70-30. Then if I want to charge 60-40, where I only give them 60 and I get to keep 40, I now need to provide coaching. If I want to charge 50-50 and I say, here, I'm going to give you 50 and I'm going to keep 50, now I have to actually give them a lead. So I have to have the charisma, the training and support, the coaching, and the leads. But people will do that because that's a good deal. Because if I have all that as the person on the receiving end, I can do more deals and I'm getting support and help that's worth the money.
And you might even be getting rid of some tasks that you aren't good at or don't love doing, that kind of drains your energy. So it could be a win-win situation for everybody, right?
100%. Now, the problem that I've noticed in our world is we seem to be caught now in either end of the spectrum. We're either doing the 80-20 where I've got a lot of charisma, but I'm actually going broke because that's not really a platform to make profit. Or I have people on a 50-50, which is great for me, except that I'm not giving them training and consulting and support, things like a transaction coordinator or a marketing coordinator. And so the only deals they're really closing, all the leads I'm paying for falling on the floor, and the only deals they're closing are coming from their sphere. And they look up after 3 or 6 months and they go, I don't really need you anymore because everything's coming from my own people. Those leads you're giving me aren't helping me. So we're kind of stuck in that place. And if we're willing to take the step that you took and that I'm taking, which is to learn that stuff of how do you train, how do you coach, how do you provide support to people so that they can have more time to close more deals. If you're willing to just fight through that messy middle that we talk about in real estate, that's where there's real freedom and real wealth and real purpose in life of helping other people succeed and achieve their goals by getting to that level of business.
Yeah. And there's even one step farther, which I watch a lot of people really go pretty far with some talented people and then lose them and then be so shocked that they lost them because they were not making their world so much bigger that when that person looks up and goes, where's my next opportunity, which Gary says happens every 5 to 7 years, the person does this, you don't have another opportunity that you can go do with them. And so they think the only thing to do is go be you somewhere else.
That's right. Yeah. So your world has to keep getting bigger. And that's what we've seen Gary do so well, right? He just kept adding pieces and adding pieces. And this company provides so many opportunities in so many different ways. I've just found if you're bored or you're not succeeding, that's your own fault because you're really not willing to learn anything anymore. And you really shut down. As long as you stay open and you keep learning, you have massive opportunities.
Yeah, I love that. So what are some of the other things, I don't know how many in a month you meet with, but I know you meet with a lot of top agents and your career has probably been thousands. What are some of the key things that you see that kind of keep people from really taking their success to the next level that maybe they either haven't identified or unwilling to do something about?
Well, one of the concepts we know about and we teach is E to P, right? You're entrepreneurial, so you have this marvelous ability to sell and engage people, but you never get purposeful, or you get purposeful to a certain level and then you stall out. So one of the things I notice often is people are doing really well in spite of the fact that they have no systems.
Right.
And so what we can do as consultants and trainers and coaches say, so if I could help you to systematize that, if you could get it organized and automated in a system, say like Command that we have, or another way to automate that system, would you then be able to grow your business even bigger? And they say, oh my gosh, yes, could you help me with that? So I think stopping to take an hour or even a day or even 3 days to set something up so that now you can do it in big waves. And that includes something as simple as a database. Most of our best agents are not running a database at a really high level. And we know if you run a database at a high level with 200 people, you can make a good living. If you do it with 1,000 people or 5,000 people, now you can have a massive business.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, for some blessing reason, I got the database, and when I wound up turning my business over to Brad for 20 years, the business continued to grow because we had done well at the database. And when it came an opportunity to sell it, that's what got me 7 figures, is the fact that I was able to sell a great database, right? It's interesting you say that, because I remember saying to my coach many years ago, when I get a great system, I'll do X. He got so tired of saying that to me. He stopped me and he said, you know what, Linda, do you know when you're going to get a good system? I said, no. I'm thinking, oh boy, good. This is good, because I've been wondering when I'm going to get a good system. He said, when you hire a systems person. So what I love about this is you as the coach, we're going to step in and help them do it. Otherwise, they're going to have to go hire a systems person, because I have a saying, if I was going to do it, I would have already. And because I'm not a systems person, I was just going to complain about it to my coach every time and never do it. That was what was going to happen.
Yeah. And we literally have that support, and people don't realize that they can tap into it. So we now have market center tech trainers. We have a regional tech trainer. I call the top 300 to 500 agents in my region every quarter. I didn't set any of that up. My regional tech trainer, Ryan, set that up. And I just asked him, could you make it so that the top, so I have 10 people come up every day, and I just know how to call them. And then if they need certain pieces of information, those are ready for me really quick. And I can just click a couple of buttons and send them that information. And then I just have to execute the other side of the plan. But he did all that. And everyone in our market centers has that support person. We just need to connect them to them.
Love that. So at 201, what's the number they can make? At 1,000, what can they make? And 5,000, what can they make? Case for those that are money motivated, that might motivate them to get their databases up.
Well, I think if you can get to 6 figures, what typically agents always say, and we know, I believe the number was 119,000 at 201. Between 200 and 500 agents, your return is about 119,000 on average, right? So some are making more and some are making less, but on average. And then I don't recall the numbers upwards of that, but if you want to get higher than that to 250 to 300 to 500, now you need to just get into 1,000 agents, 5,000 agents, something like that.
And
We've actually got a graph on that.
I think we were doing about 800,000 gross. This is back when the sales prices were way lower, 800,000 in gross. And we probably had about 5,000 people in our database, in all honesty.
And what's nice about having data now is we know, we've always believed this to be true. And you were part of that group that's at the front of the MREA book. And you thought, I know this is working. So internally, now we know it data wise. We know, because we've actually looked at the numbers. We know the people that have 200 to 500 people in there are making 6 figures, and they have to have a regular nurture system. But if you do that, you will make money.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and also we are in 2023 where we know the economy is shifting, and we're now moving into a skill base. What are the things that you're telling people? Because my market share always grew in a shift. I always looked forward to a shift. Now I look forward to a shift because of investments, but I always look forward to a shift because I knew, based on the skills that I already was doing, that were natural. But we have a huge agent base that's come on and never been through a shift. So what are the few things you're telling people, if you want to survive and thrive, not just survive, but thrive in this market? What are the few things you think people should be doing?
Well, I look at it this way. When we have a red hot market, you wake up every day and literally buyers and sellers are calling you, right? So there's no art form to that except to be able to answer your phone. Once we've shifted shifted to where we are now, I have to have a system, which is what we just talked about. So everybody will tell me, oh, I call my database all the time. But what they're really doing is what I used to do, which meant if I had a database of 500 people, I really just called the same 30 people that I like talking to the most. And then there were 470 that were never getting called, but they were in there somewhere.
And you didn't call them because you thought it's been so long since I called them. And I just know they're sitting around thinking, if I call, what the heck is Linda calling now for? Which they were never going to think that. But I never called them because I thought they were thinking that.
That's right. Yeah, we're in our own head. So I now have a system where I'm going to call all 500 because now I've actually opened the window to all of those people rather than the same 30 giving me my unfair share of that group. And then the third thing I think you need to add now is now you have to have some skill or sense of understanding what's happening in the market. So for example, you look at mortgage rates, right? It's been a big topic because with inflation, mortgage rates have gone up to over 7%, right? And I think they've dipped back into the 6.5 area. But people say, well, why do I want to sell my house right now and take on a higher mortgage when I have this low mortgage? Well, you have to have an answer for that. You have to have skills for that. And you have to be able to say, well, if you find your dream house, are you willing to pass on it and wait for the rate to go down? Or do you think you should get your dream house now? If you're waiting,
and refinance later, right?
And refinance later. If you're waiting for the mortgage rate to go back down to 3%, do you know the last time it was at 3%? Well, we have a historical trend line. It's never been at 3%, except for what we just came out of. And it's highly unlikely that it's going back to that. But if you look historically and you go back to 1981, it was almost 17%.
Yeah.
If you look at 2000, it was at 8%. So 7%, 6.5% is still very, very good. And if you have the home you want, or you need a better home, you actually should do something now.
Yeah. And we're really lucky because we have, opportunities at our big 2 events every year that we get to get those stats and get those PowerPoints and be able to share them with people. So it's not like you got to be, a statistician or anything. Your company, wherever you are, because I know we've got a lot of non-KW listeners, your company should be providing those kind of stats to you. And then all you got to do is go out and present them and, look very valid to people and look like the local economist and understand. And I think sometimes, Mark, I remember from my own sales, I was the person that had to be convinced first. And I think a lot of our agents aren't convinced and they don't believe it is a great time for someone to sell. It is a great time for someone to buy. So if nothing else, it helps you understand, oh yeah, it is a great time to sell. It is a great time to buy. And if you don't believe it, you're not going to be able to sell it.
That's right. You have to have a passion for what you're doing, right? And that includes, we should all be looking for property now. I know you guys are always looking for property. We say it's always a good time to buy a good piece of real estate. And the properties that you're going to buy today that other people will think are not a good deal are the same ones you bought 2 years ago. They said were a bad deal then, they're now worth twice as much. So it's always a good time to buy a good piece of real estate. You just have to be looking. And if you like the game and you play the game, then it all just becomes fun. Yeah.
And we have over 80 something, I think around 80 something single family homes. And Jim and I were reminiscing the other day. And honestly, most of them were bought at 7 and 8% with an ARM. Wow. And we've never had a problem with those cash flowing if we're, just the way it worked out. And so I think it's expectation instead of realistic evaluation of what does that look like and do the numbers still work, and don't get stuck on things are going up or things are coming down or whatever.
Well, people tend to follow the crowd, right? So when it's a hot market, everyone buys because they say everyone's buying. So
and you should go the opposite.
You should actually do the opposite.
Yes.
And now's the best time to be looking.
Yeah, that's so true. Anything else as we kind of close out here? Anything else that you are helping your agency for this year to come out on top and not just, survive the market, but thrive and really enjoy this market that we're in? I always enjoy a more leveled out market. I look at some of my agents who were exhausted emotionally from the things their buyers had to go through to get a home, that I would just kind of sigh of relief and go, thank God it's leveling back out. But any other advice you'd give people? Yeah, if I was going to add one piece, Linda, I would say communities. Look at the community or the niche that you love, because you should have a community somewhere. We're blessed at Keller Williams. We have a number of different communities. So if you want to be involved in luxury, you should dial into luxury calls. We do a luxury call in our region every month to share best practices and what people are doing. But there are many things. There's KW Young Professionals. There's a homes and land segment. There's a new home segment. I ran into an agent the other day, a really nice agent, and I didn't realize as we had lunch and he started telling me about his background. He had a great background in new homes. And I said, do you do anything big with new homes now? And he said, no. I said, well, why don't we connect you with our new homes person? I don't know what'll happen, but something good will happen because you have a lot of knowledge over here and they have a lot of knowledge about what's happening there, and just get together and kind of learn and figure out what might be a good fit for you. There's going to be opportunity there. Yeah, we have great diversity groups, and we have so many. How many communities? Do you remember the number we actually have? It's a lot.
It's a lot. I don't remember.
I think
but
whatever.
it's double digits.
Yeah, whatever community you're interested in. And the reason I think that is so important, Mark, is number one, no one succeeds alone. And I contribute all of my success and everything I've ever done in the real estate world to always being a part of some community where we shared ideas. You had someone else you could call and say, have you ever been through this? Community matters now more than ever. And I'm not talking about a Facebook community. I'm talking about a community that you can connect with. You can hold each other accountable. You can learn from each other. You can share business with each other. I mean, we do a leadership academy in our region. And what I've noticed from those academies is some people are now going on vacations together.
Yeah.
And the way we got to be friends with the Ubaldinis is we were both speakers at Howard Britton's Star Power, and they've been lifelong friends with us and now business partners. So I think the world seems to act like we need to separate and be alone, but I honestly think communities are the answer to our soul and to doing more business and everything else, because I think it feeds you way more than you realize it feeds you.
Yeah, there was recently a Harvard study, I believe it was Harvard, that was completed. It was on the CBS Sunday Morning Show this just a week or so ago, saying that people live 7 to 8 years longer when they're connected to community or other people.
Oh, wow.
And they talked about the effects of what the pandemic did by taking people out of the world. And I've actually seen that in my own life with elderly people in my life that got pulled away from community because it was safer to isolate for good reason in some ways, but getting back into community and connecting with people and having a resource in all the areas, right? So your husband, Jim, is one of my connections. If I'm thinking of a rental property, I'll say, you know, I wonder what Jim would do on that. And I'll just text him and say, what do you think of this? And he'll give me a piece of feedback. We should have that in all areas, right? Spiritual and business and physical and all those things.
Yeah. A perfect example is today, as Mark and I were finishing up our meeting, I had called on one of our commercial leaders that is the co-leader for our commercial division. She's very sharp. And she literally came downstairs after our meeting was over, sat and looked at our portfolio of stuff, answered great questions for us. She's going to help us get an evaluation together because we have an opportunity that we don't know enough about to make a good decision. Oh my gosh, that is priceless.
Yeah.
And when my husband said to her, what do we owe you? She said, nothing. You don't owe me anything. You've poured into me. You've given back to me. This is just my opportunity to do the same for you. And I said, well, if there is anything we could ever do for you, I would love to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that right there is priceless. How do you put a dollar figure on those connections? I think of another time when we were getting ready to sell an apartment that we'd never sold apartments before. Before we did the deal and even put $1 in the remodel, I called a friend at KW in California who'd done a ton of apartments. And I said, here's the list of things we're thinking about doing. He nixed 90% of them. And guess what? We made more money because of that. So community, I love that you said that. I didn't even think about this, but community might be the number one thing people could do this year is find communities. Don't isolate yourself. Don't think it's okay to be the biggest fish in your pond, because it's not. And go get in communities that are giving, sharing, caring, and doing big things, because they're only going to rise you up with them.
Yeah, I can't be the only one, Linda, that has mornings where I wake up and I don't want to get out of bed. And I have fear creep in, and the enemy creeps in on you. And then you say to yourself, I feel like I'm so alone, but I'm actually not alone.
Yeah.
I can call Linda if I wanted to. I can get information from Jimmy. I can call Nikki. I've got a whole network of people. You're never in this alone. Yeah. And that's what should compel you to get out of bed and have fun.
Yeah. And matter of fact, you should already have that person on your emergency contact. I remember years ago when we did a business psychotherapist, he wouldn't this was a husband-wife group that was in this mastermind, and he wouldn't let you be the person for your spouse. But your spouse could call, and Gary Ubaldini was it for Jimmy. And if I saw Jimmy in a funk, then I could call Gary, and Gary would immediately make a call to Jimmy. And within a 3-minute conversation, he's completely changed out of that funk and seeing the world in a different way. So everybody should have that opportunity, or those people that, you know what, I'm just going to call and see what happens to my mood afterwards.
That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much. I think we could go a lot longer, because I know there's a bunch more in there. So maybe we'll do part 2 when Dana can join us back again.
That would be terrific.
She's really sad she missed it today, but she had some stuff come up. So remember, if you have not, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have you join us. And then also remember, we're still looking for those 500 5-star reviews to help other people find us. And if you know someone that would benefit from these kind of conversations, be sure and pass this podcast along. If you you have an opportunity, a challenge, or a question, or someone that you believe would be a great guest, reach out to us at info@everything life and real estate. And Mark, thank you again. I enjoyed our conversation, and we'll see you guys next week.
My pleasure.
Be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to inspire you to live an abundant real estate life. Don't forget to rate and review so we can bring you the best content. Find this and other valuable information at everythinglifeandrealestate.com.